some Morebo Warmbo election Warmbo. I'm Warmbo. The election is in a week, but to Warmbo, time is as fleeting as the passing of light. Human life is but a spark illuminating my path to glory. Warmbo currently favors his personal friend, Mr. Donald Trump, to win over smelly Cody. And as always, we're gonna begin our video by discussing the many ways Warmbo was disappointed with the new Joker film. Hello? Cthulhu? Is that you, bro?
Warmbo, this is an intervention.
I have nothing to say to you, Mr. You.
Listen, Warmbo, I know you're mad with Mr. Cody, but you can't become a MAGA weirdo just to spite me. Even for you, that's evil.
But Cody said that Mr. Biden was bad, and then he said Warmbo was bad, and then...
No, shush it, you shush.
Dan, you okay, dog? You need some water?
It's fine. I have COVID. It's fine. I literally have COVID. Just you sit there and you shush and you watch this episode, because this episode is for you, Warmbo. And I guess all of you can be here too, because here at the end of all things, the week before the election, it's time for just a little but also huge refresher about one of the two candidates running. So gather your smelly family. It's time to remember that which we have fought so hard to forget. Also, I literally have COVID while shooting this. It's not a bit. Thanks, Fauci! Orange Man's still bad. Seriously, though, I have COVID, which, when you think about it, is kind of perfect for this episode, reminding you what it was like back when Trump was president. Like, remember COVID? I do. I really super do. Anyway, here's some more news. Trump. As in, Donald John Trump, the 45th president of the United States, is bad. He's a bad person, and he was a bad president. No, really, I know it's a spicy, hot, feverish take, but it's not just that Donald Trump is bad. Importantly, he's also bad for you. And not just if you already don't like him, if you support him. He is bad for you. But he's so bad that it's hard to even remember all the bad things he's done. That's why I'm going to beam almost maybe everything bad he's ever done directly into Warmbo's brain. Right now.
Knock, knock. Very low energy.
Little Marco.
A fat pig.
Pocahontas.
Flying Ted.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
1,000 words.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter.
A very tough hombre.
Insane asylums. They're bringing drugs. They're eating the dogs.
A lot of bad genes in our country right now.
We're building a wall.
Of Muslims. A black person.
Just to be clear.
Are they friends of yours? And some, I assume, are good people.
Shoot missiles into Mexico.
Shithole countries.
Stand back and stand by very fine people on both sides.
Kung flu.
Injection.
Let them die.
Losers and suckers.
I like people that weren't captured.
Blood coming out of her wherever.
Grab him by the pussy.
She would not be my first choice.
That's my wife.
Which woman are you pointing to?
Schlonged. Electrocution over a shark.
I want the boat.
Going toward the Gulf.
Jesus Christ. Hey, Bob.
Would you like me to sign this?
Just drive the hell out of here.
Such a nasty one.
I didn't say lock up.
Lock her up. Lock her up.
Because I don't like losers.
Knock the crap out of them. They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks.
They have to have their head examined.
You need ID.
I had such a good life.
Down at 7-Eleven.
And now it's the tallest.
10. Bing, bing. Bong, bong.
Camera TV.
Have a good time with your Bitcoin. Never concede. You won't have to vote anymore.
Bye, Dean.
Yeah, not good, is it? Unfortunately, I can't zap everyone watching yet. So, we're gonna do this the slow way. Because yes, there are a lot of reasons to be angry with the Democrats. And in fact, you may even be taking a moral stance against voting for them this year. You know, what with the genocide. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for or who not to vote for. For many, this year is just one big trolley problem. So this video isn't to guilt anyone into voting a certain way or to point out that the Democrats are somehow better by comparison. No, the point of this video is to simply remind everyone that Donald Trump really sucks. Like, more than people remember. You might already know he sucks, but I'm still not sure you fully remember the extent to which he sucks. Turds. He sucks turds. I think the fact that he wasn't the most recent president and has been largely off Twitter.com, the everything app, has made it easy for people to forget just how bad he is and was, and how profoundly unworthy he is of any redemption arc the way we tend to do for other presidents. I'm looking at you, Carter. You absolute... Still alive, monster. Might outlive me at this point. Okay, shall we begin? Orange Man Racist. Ah, shucks. Bad news about Trump, he sometimes makes racially tinged comments. You know, like saying that in the context of immigration, a lot of them are criminals who have bad genes. A real Hitler thing to say. Of course, Trump's racism was one of the first things he offered to the American people when he first began his campaign in 2015. It is the foundation of his political beliefs, so it's pretty hard to quantify in a single segment of this video. Even before saying that Mexicans are rapists, although some are good people probably, he also famously claimed that Obama wasn't born here. I guess because he's black? He's of course doing the exact same thing to Kamala, as in questioning her ethnicity like some kind of race cop. Less fun than time cop. He's of course been accused of using racial slurs, constantly singles out and demonizes immigrant populations, and has retweeted literal white supremacists. Remember that? Remember when he hosted Nick Fuentes, an open white supremacist and Nazi guy at Mar-a-Lago? Like an actual Nazi. Remember when he retweeted a video of someone shouting white power, or that guy with the white genocide header image? Remember when he accused a judge of being biased against him because the judge was Mexican? How about when he lied and said he saw Arab people cheering for 9/11, or his long history fighting with Native Americans? Who does that? General Custer? Hey, remember the Central Park Five? In 1989, 5 black and Latino boys were arrested and wrongfully convicted of the assault and rape of a 28-year-old white woman in Central Park, and Trump paid $85,000 for a full-page ad in New York newspapers with the heading, "Bring back the death penalty, bring back our police." The ad, which specifically cited this arrest, argued that roving bands of wild criminals were terrorizing the city, and that politicians had gone too soft due to concerns about police brutality. He explicitly called for the execution of these kids, saying, quote, "These muggers and murderers should be forced to suffer, and when they kill, they should be executed for their crimes." And then those kids were exonerated and eventually reached a settlement for their wrongful imprisonment. So one would imagine that upon learning this, Trump would take a moment to reflect on that. Not only that he was wrong, but him being wrong shows exactly why we shouldn't, immediately execute people suspected of a crime. So, did he do all of those things?
Mr. President, will you apologize to Central Park 5? They've been exonerated. There have been videos and movies shown about the case, and you came out with a full-page ad saying that they should die, that they should have the death penalty.
Why do you bring that question up now? It's an interesting time to bring it up. You have people on both sides of that. They admitted their guilt. If you look at Linda Fairstein and if you look at some of the prosecutors, they think that the city should never have settled that case.
Nah, of course not. Both sides, he says. Interesting, he sure likes that phrase. Because, of course, we all saw Trump's comments about the white nationalist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, where he said there were very fine people on both sides. And to be fair, he qualified this statement by saying, "And I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists," which is kind of like saying that you like BLTs, but you're not talking about the bacon or the lettuce or the tomatoes. But still, fact check! He didn't literally call neo-Nazis fine people, so score one for the truth. No, Trump was simply lying and saying that the demonstration, explicitly organized and attended and led by neo-Nazis and white supremacists like Richard Spencer, also had good people there. I guess. The rally that was full of chants like "Jews will not replace us" and was a protest specifically against the removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee and resulted in the murder of counter-protester Heather Heyer by neo-Nazi James Fields Jr. So Trump was either A, lying about a group of Nazis being actually not that, B, knowingly complimenting a group of Nazis, or C, saw a group of Nazis and didn't register that they were Nazis. And you'll notice that all three options would be caused by Trump being a racist. But at least when finally confronted about it, Trump had these very firm words to say to the neo-fascist Proud Boys who participated in the Charlottesville violence.
Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
If you're wondering what he meant by stand by, he was telling them not to blow their load on violence yet. But, incidentally, wait for when he loses the election so he can try to incite them to lynch Mike Pence. Oops! Spoilers for news that happened 4 years ago. Hey, interesting, he never used this both sides phrasing when it came to Black Lives Matter, a movement Trump repeatedly demonized. I wonder what was different with that. Or remember when NFL players kneeled in protest of systemic racism and police executions of black people, and that, for some reason, pissed Trump off. I wonder if it has to do with his desire to execute black teens accused of crimes. God, there's so much. Remember shithole countries? Remember Kung Flu? Remember when he pardoned Sheriff Joe Arpaio, a guy who was convicted specifically because he refused to stop racially profiling Latino people? That was his crime. It's very important to remember that Trump doesn't just say racist things, but enacts racist policies. Of all the judges he appointed, only 16% of them weren't white. Those judges would go on to make life worse in black neighborhoods. Oh, remember back in 2016 when he posted that tweet with the Star of David next to Hillary Clinton's face with a bunch of money in the background with most corrupt candidate ever scrawled on it like a bitchy comment on your high school yearbook? Trump's stance on Judaism is interesting. For starters, he had this to say about Jewish Americans who vote for Democrats.
I think any Jewish people that vote for a Democrat, I think it shows either a total lack of knowledge or great disloyalty.
That was specifically in response to the suggestion that the U.S. cuts aid to Israel on account of their occupation of Palestine. Hey, good idea! And so calling American Jews disloyal to Israel, a country they likely weren't born in, and most have probably never been to, and many don't even identify with, is not only anti-Semitic, it's part of and contributes to an ethno-nationalist conspiracy theory about Jews having a dual loyalty. Trump's anti-Semitism is rooted in his strong support for Israel, because as a somewhat coy ethno-nationalist, he likes other ethno-national countries, such as Israel. He supports the genocide in Gaza, saying, "You've got to finish the problem," when asked about Israel's invasion. That's an odd phrasing, right? Finish the problem? Who says that? Not a commonly used phrase. Finish the job, solve the problem, sure, but finish the problem? So like you need a solution to finish it in like a final way. It's like, it's just an odd phrasing is my point. Anyway, also, one of his biggest donors is a rich weirdo who gave him $20 million with the specific request that he would move our embassy to Jerusalem, which he did. Because he takes bribes, you see. And now that same donor wants Trump to push annexing the West Bank, which he'll probably do. Because he takes bribes, you see. He's also reportedly been in talks with Netanyahu to try to avoid a ceasefire deal, because he's worried a ceasefire would help Kamala's election chances. Of course, Netanyahu pretty obviously doesn't want a ceasefire anyway, because that would unfortunately get in the way of the genocide. Oh man, so thank goodness Kamala has taken a really bold stance against genocide. Shucks. But hey, at least she hasn't literally used the word Palestinian as a slur.
He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian.
Love it when the bar is extremely low. Can't even see the bar anymore. It's underground. Bye-bye, bar. Hey, remember the Muslim ban? Trump has vowed to expand that ban if he gets elected and include Gaza refugees in the ban. Because, boy, did you know he's not fond of immigrants? And by not fond, I mean in like a genocidal way. Like how he said immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. A direct Hitler quote.
They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done.
Immigrants are poison. There's just no way to spin the use of the word poisoned as anything but literal Nazi shit. Especially when Trump is directly confronted about this language, specifically told that it's the language that Hitler used, and then just continues saying it.
Why do you use words like vermin and poisoning of the blood? The press, as you know, immediately reacts to that by saying, well, that's the kind of language that Hitler and Mussolini used.
Well, that's what they say. I didn't know that, but that's what they say. Because our country is being poisoned.
There he is, being asked why he uses the same language as Hitler and Mussolini, and he responds with, because our country's being poisoned. Haunting. That should haunt you. Even if he didn't know that, as he also claims, you'd think that once he did know that, he would stop doing that, talking like Hitler, and reflect and introspect upon learning that. Also, he absolutely knew that, because that interview happened this year, and was not the first time Trump was specifically told that he was saying Hitler shit, and in fact, referenced it in a previous speech.
They're destroying the blood of our country. That's what they're doing. They're destroying our country. They don't like it when I said that. And I never read Mein Kampf. They said, oh, Hitler said that in a much different way.
You can't just keep saying, I didn't know that, when you're on video very clearly knowing that thing. That thing being that you're talking like world-famous Nazi leader Adolf Hitler. Though, considering he's reportedly praised some good things that Hitler did and asked for generals like Hitler's generals, I suppose this is all to be expected. Hey, remember when Trump's policies separated over 5,000 kids from their families on purpose? Remember when he diverted money from FEMA to ICE instead because putting immigrants in cages was more important to him than disaster relief for American citizens, who he does not care about at all? And now he explicitly wants to do more of this, outlining mass deportation plans with military units patrolling the streets. Imagine what that would look like. The collective trauma of a nation watching massive violence against millions of people as they are rounded up, imprisoned, and deported. Imagine. Because Trump clearly has.
In Colorado, they're so brazen, they're taking over sections of the state. And, you know, getting them out will be a bloody story.
There is just zero denying what Trump wants at this point. Not that there was ever a reasonable doubt. He has had a long history of calling for the execution of people he's deemed to be criminals, aka mostly brown people, has repeatedly referenced Hitler's rhetoric after being told he was doing that, and thus normalizing literal Nazi rhetoric as being acceptable, and has plainly stated that he would support violent deportations of immigrants, who he has said publicly have bad genes and that he doesn't consider them to be human.
The 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia who was barbarically murdered by an illegal alien animal. The Democrats say, please don't call them animals. They're humans. I said, no, they're not humans. They're not humans. They're animals.
You can't excuse everything as a metaphor, especially when even the metaphor is racist and fascist. I am begging you to understand that if you vote for Donald Trump, you are voting for a racist who wants to do Nazi stuff. How much? How far? I don't know. But that is his goal. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of historians and like Scientific American. It is a factual statement. If he is allowed to, he would exterminate and mass deport anyone who he deems doesn't belong, be that migrants or really anyone he doesn't like. Anyway, did I miss any of the racism? Oh yeah, the Pocahontas stuff. We have to move on. All this talking is literally killing me. Talking about Trump might kill me. He might kill me. That sucks. I need to lie down. So let's just do some ads or just sit for a minute. I don't care.
Hello, Patreon. Are you nervous? Big week next week. Something's going on. I don't know what. Anyway, just popping in to say hi, hello, how are you? We love you very much, and we're grateful for you. So, thanks. We're going to be okay.
Katy. 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 Katy, I need your help.
Hey, dipshit, listen. I need help.
I need help.
No, I need help. So, okay, you know that Liam Cornlord guy that I'm married to? Well, turns out he's actually really evil.
Yeah, I know. We all knew.
Are you doing okay over there? What's... Huh. So this a sex thing? It's fine if it's a sex thing. I read the fanfic.
It's not a sex thing. I have COVID.
Oh. Ew.
You have to do the show for me, at least for a while.
Oh, well. Mr. Dogballs needs my help?
Why am I Mr. Dogballs? Please just be nice to me. I'm sick.
Okay, I'll help you out. For a price. You have to forgive me for helping the Dark Cornlord and betraying you, and help me defeat him, and forgive the next 5 evil things that I do.
Okay. Fine. Did you just email me a contract promising to forgive you?
Sign it. It's one of them e-signature things.
So you just had this ready to go. Well, it's signed. Are you happy? Will you take over?
Sure. What are friends for? Well, he's probably fine. I don't care. Sup? So I'm here now, and according to the teleprompter, Cody was just talking about how Trump is a racist who likes to say Nazi shit. Well, that's true. No notes from me. And no matter how many times we're assured, we probably shouldn't take his words as some kind of metaphor. Or, hey, okay, do you remember when we were supposed to take Trump's words symbolically? His supporters and defenders love the idea that Trump is just kind of talking, just jazzing about stuff and things. He loves freedom of speech, after all.
President Trump, back in 2015, you said the Confederate battle flag belongs in a museum. Do you still believe that?
All I say is freedom of speech. It's very simple. My attitude is freedom of speech.
See? Freedom of speech is good, unless your speech is radical and leftist.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
But other than that, or also, unless you're interrupting his rally.
So if you see somebody getting ready to throw a tomato, knock the crap out of them, would you? Seriously. Okay? Just knock the hell. I promise you, I will pay for the legal fees, I promise.
But other than that, oh, shoot. Also, if you're a news organization that he doesn't like.
No, I think 60 Minutes, I think it should be taken off the air. They should take that license away from CBS.
But other than that, and also one free day, just at the start.
You would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
he's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border, and I want to drill.
That's not retribution. I'm
gonna be, you know, he keeps, we love this guy. He says, you're not gonna be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one.
I guess he's talking about drilling and the border. He was asked specifically if he'd seek retribution on people, and he sort of pivoted and then said he'd be a dictator about 2 things. And so anyone who wants to defend him can do that, because ultimately he didn't technically answer the question, I guess. So, does Trump want to be a dictator? No one can say, except for me. I can say yes. Orange Man Dictator. As a dictator myself, I have dictator dar. Obviously, the question of whether Trump can be a dictator is up for debate. But during his one term as the big boy president, he repeatedly floated the idea of having God-king powers. Like, He super wanted to execute Mark Milley after learning that the general called China to ease tensions after the January 6th riots, writing on Truth Social. In times gone by, the punishment would have been death. A war between China and the United States could have been the results of this treasonous act. To be continued. Listen, I get it. Being the boss is so much easier when you can just have people killed. But boy, he just loves the idea of executing people, doesn't he? Almost as much as he likes hurting protesters, unless they are specifically supporting him. Trump had floated the idea of using the Insurrection Act to use federal troops to violently suppress the BLM protests, called the advisors who talked him out of it losers, and vocally supported deploying federal troops on U.S. citizens when he deems it necessary.
In places where there is a true breakdown of the rule of law, such as the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago, the next president should use every power at his disposal to restore order, and if necessary, that includes sending in the National Guard or the troops.
Oh yes, let's clap for martial law, truly our finest freedom-loving president. Trump absolutely adores calling for violence, especially on protesters and opponents, which he is now explicitly calling the enemy within.
I think the bigger problem is the enemy from within, not even the people that have come in and destroying our country. By the way, totally destroying our country. The towns, the villages, they're being inundated. But I don't think they're the problem in terms of election day. I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
There is literally no way to wiggle out of the fact that Trump just called his political rivals and seemingly citizens who happen to disagree with him the enemy within, and suggested using the military against them. Literally a Nazi thing. There are quite simply no mental gymnastics you can perform to make that a different thing, especially since Trump keeps clarifying that this was exactly what he was saying. I mean, they're gonna keep trying, and okay, just for fun, let's watch a haunted circus doll's explanation.
He's not just running on slogans. When people ask him questions, he speaks from the heart, and sometimes that means he's going to talk about issues that the mainstream media isn't focused on.
Oh, okay. So when he says that Democrats are the enemy and need to be controlled with military action, he's just speaking from the heart. Thanks, JD. Watch your neck. Oh, hey, remember how Trump loves authoritarian leaders? Loves. His words, not mine. He has poured praise on Kim Jong-un, saluted Kim's generals, offered him a ride on Air Force One. He also praised Viktor Orban for being a strong man. And of course, Putin. Trump loves Putin. Criminally so, you might say. I mean, we just learned that he reportedly sent COVID tests exclusively to Russia during the pandemic shortage, all while downplaying the very idea of testing to the American people. You, the American people. After all, he's a hotel ghoul who wants to do business with anyone willing to pander to him. Trump is so easily manipulated by other world leaders that his former national security advisor won't stop warning people about that aspect of his defective personality and thinks he still needs to be specifically coached against this. That former NatSec advisor is H.R. McMaster, retired general and cool name guy, who back in 2018 talked about how the previous election was absolutely influenced by Russia. Trump then proceeded to fire him because it's not just that he sucks up to Putin. He wants to be like Putin. He looks up to him. He wants to be a big, strong leader who tamps down on his people and does war stuff. Remember how, as president, he was obsessed with using nukes? Trump apparently floated the idea of using nukes on North Korea and framing another country, and even suggested nuking a hurricane. Like, guys, he clearly just wanted to set off a nuke for any reason. And sure, again, I do get that. They go boom. It's neat. It's cool. We should do one, just one for fun, but somewhere where it doesn't matter, like Antarctica or Maine. But this idea that Trump is somehow anti-war is, dare I say, balderdash. This is a guy who once said that if a NATO country didn't pay enough on defense, they should be invaded by Russia, and he would, quote, encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. That is not anti-war. Being a cruel, vindictive guy who ordered the assassination of a top Iranian general isn't anti-war. Canceling the reporting of drone strikes, which were way up during his administration, isn't anti-war. Wanting Hitler's generals is not anti-war. It is super, 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 super duper not that. Balder fucking dash. Oh my God. Oh my God, you guys, I almost forgot. Do you remember the Bible photo? That time Trump had a group of peaceful protesters, which included priests, violently pushed out of Lafayette Square Park by federal authorities so that he could take an awkward picture of him holding someone else's Bible. We didn't have to play that clip for so long, but counterpoint, yes. It's like a home video you'd take of a toddler, except in this case, the toddler is trying to nab the most dystopian photo op known to mankind. As funny as it is that someone asked, "Is that your Bible?" and he said, "It's a Bible." Hilarious. It is also a moment from an incredibly messed up situation. Using religious imagery, Christian imagery, for a photo op while violence against peaceful protesters, including priests and children, was knowingly and purposely going on around him. He is an evil fraud. It is so clear. The feds would later try to claim that they were planning to clear the park anyway, except they also admitted that they were clearly pressured by Bill Barr, who was clearly pressured by Trump. Oh my God, guys, remember Bill Barr, Trump's attorney general, who he clearly picked because he supported him politically and had a history of protecting presidents from treason charges and earned the nickname Cover-Up General Barr, who perpetually used his position to absolve Trump's crime friends of their crimes, which in turn ensured that they wouldn't flip on Trump, who Barr was, of course, also protecting from the Mueller probe. Remember the Mueller probe? Remember James Comey? Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. One thing at a time. We're still on Barr, who once requested that other countries' intelligence agencies help Trump on his impeachment. The first one, I think. Barr would go on to help Trump sow doubt over and rig the 2020 election, but then resign in disgust after Trump would attempt his coup after losing. Oh, right. The coup. Remember that? Of course you do. We don't have to get too much into it. I mean, I guess it's weird to want to gloss over the time Trump encouraged his supporters to help him overturn the results of an election, but here we are. And actually, all right. Okay, maybe we won't gloss. So, what was Trump's involvement? Unassuming, accidental figurehead? Bumbling martyr. It seems that Trump was actually well aware of the nature and hidden goals of the rally that would lead up to the coup attempt. Firstly, he flat out told his supporters that the plan was to march on the Capitol.
Right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them.
That's not a spur of the moment idea. He is saying, here's what we're about to do. And while he emphasizes cheering the people on his side, he can't help but to stress that they won't be cheering the people against him. But I guess booing? You could argue that at this point, Trump didn't know the full intent. Except testimony from a former staffer revealed that Trump also knew that there were members of the crowd who were armed, and in fact, ordered security to allow them to enter the rally anyway. Referring to the magnetic metal detectors, Trump reportedly said, quote, "I don't fucking care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. They're not here to hurt me. Take the fucking mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Let the people in and take the mags away. They're not here to hurt me" is such a coquettish little implication. Who are they here to hurt then, Dawn? According to a public hearing by a bipartisan House Select Committee, during the actual riot, Trump watched TV, tweeted, called senators to try to delay the count of electoral votes, called Rudy Giuliani, and argued with his staff who were insisting that he should call off the attack. So yeah, sounds like Trump was into it. Until it was pretty clear it was going to fail, at which point he limply told the rioters to go home while repeatedly lying that the election was stolen from him.
I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. From me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special.
What are you, Mr. Rogers? Whether or not you think Trump explicitly knew and helped plan an official coup, it's overwhelmingly clear that had those rioters succeeded in stopping the count and hanging Mike Pence and, all the other things they wanted to do, Trump would have 100% gone along with it. Of course he would have. We just learned that when he was told that they wanted to kill his vice president, Trump responded, "So what? Oh, JD better carry mace or something." And while Trump had officially condemned the attack when he was forced to, he has since reversed that stance, going on to portray the rioters as brave martyrs, calling the ones arrested hostages.
On Saturday, Trump kicked off an Ohio rally with support for the January 6th defendants.
Can you see the spirit from the hostages? And that's what they are, as hostages.
He also likes to brag about the size of the riot, because of course he does, claiming incorrectly that his pre-coup rally had more participants than MLK's famous "I have a dream" speech. So going back to whether Trump knew what he was doing, well, of fucking course he did. But okay, if for some reason you think he didn't, which he did, but if you think he didn't, that's still really bad. Trump clearly was happy it happened and claimed that an election was stolen when that wasn't true and incited a riot. And if Trump was truly unaware of that, even though he was, but if he wasn't, then he's a dummy who shouldn't be president, right? Like, he shouted fire, started a stampede, and then eventually tried to calm everyone while still claiming there's a fire, even when everyone saw that there wasn't. And then he bragged about how big the stampede was. What? Those are the actions of an idiot who knew what they were doing, but is half-assedly trying to act innocent. And of course, this wasn't an isolated incident, but the result of years of lead-up, of Trump encouraging violence at his rallies, floating violent dictator stuff, pushing deep state conspiracies, and heightening his own and all of his followers' paranoia. He was adding more and more fuel to this fire, and then tried to act like he didn't realize it would suddenly blow up. He knew that something was going to happen that day. And what makes this all even worse is that now, running again, Trump has made no efforts to pretend like he won't do the dictator shit again.
You gotta get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to vote again. We'll have it fixed so good you're not gonna have to vote.
I'm sure people have argued that he was talking about fixing election integrity or something. But at this point, you have to be either a liar or completely checked out or very bad faith or dumb to look at years of Trump's rhetoric and try to pretend like he doesn't constantly inject violent and fascist phrases into his speeches. constantly.
I am your warrior. I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution.
To be the most forgiving, he is at the very least constantly making tasteless remarks, considering that some of his supporters tried to do a violent coup. And that's the most innocent interpretation, which should still disqualify someone from being president. I mean, to be clear, Trump absolutely knew about and attempted to do a coup, and absolutely knows he's invoking violence every time he talks. We've been focusing on the violence on January 6th, but behind the scenes, Trump was 100% trying to steal the election via a very well-documented plan involving fake electors. He demanded his vice president use authority he did not have to reject votes. Your votes. You can read about it in the indictment. It's all there. But back to the, violence and violent rhetoric. When Trump acts like he doesn't know what he's doing, he's lying badly. But even those lies would disqualify him. The idea that he is ignorant to his own violent rhetoric and accidentally keeps pushing his supporters to riot is still very bad and would mean that Trump is too stupid to know what words mean, has zero control over the things he says, and should not be the president. Anyway, speaking of stuff that should have immediately disqualified Trump, Orange Man creep. He sure is. Some people might even say he's a rapist. One of those people being myself. In fact, I'm saying it right now. The man is a rapist. And yeah, I guess, sure, being a rapist hasn't disqualified presidents in the past, but perhaps it should. Perhaps we should start somewhere. A couple months ago, it might have been hard to definitively say only one candidate is a rapist. And this episode is not about Kamala Harris, but you know who's almost certainly not a rapist? Kamala Harris. Whereas Trump has a long, long history of sexual harassment and assault. Okay, here's an oldie, not a goodie. Remember when Trump bragged about sexually assaulting women on tape?
I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Whatever you want. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
It's kind of wild how you look at that tape and think, well, that's old news. Just locker room talk, as they spun it. And then we all moved on, which is especially weird considering that at least 28 women have accused Trump of sexual harassment and sexual assault. From watching Miss Teen USA contestants while they were naked in the changing rooms, to many instances of non-consensual groping, to rape, accusations that ranged from the 1970s to 2016. Donald Trump is, by a lot of accounts, a serial rapist and a creep. And that includes multiple recordings of him confessing to it.
I'll tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show. Yes. And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant and therefore I'm inspecting it.
Just looking at the creep stuff, it is hard to fully articulate how embarrassing it is that Trump is being considered a serious political contender. It is truly spine-chilling. Hey, America, what's it going to take to recognize and oust a proud sex criminal? Even now, he is describing what happened to serial rapist Harvey Weinstein as getting schlonged.
I was so amazed that Harvey Weinstein got schlonged. He got hit as hard as you can get hit.
But in case you need a literal video of Trump palling around with a pedophile sex trafficker, well, don't worry, because we have that. Aw, man, I bet that joke was just hilarious. Boy, Epstein. In 2002, Trump told New York Magazine, quote, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He's a lot of fun to be with. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. Anyways, since that whole sex trafficking thing blew up, Trump tried to distance himself from Epstein, saying he'd never been on Epstein's plane or stupid island, despite there absolutely being evidence that Trump flew on Epstein's jet at least 7 times. And although there were allegations from an accuser that Trump directly participated in sexually abusing one of Epstein's trafficking victims, those claims were retracted, allegedly out of fear of retaliation. People like to point out that Trump banned Epstein from his club at one point after he hit on a member's young daughter. As the reporter explained, the way this person described it, such an act could irreparably harm the Trump brand, leaving Donald no choice but to remove Epstein. See? Stand-up guy. This was, of course, 2 years after Epstein was charged with soliciting prostitution, and after Trump had known him for 15 years and specifically mentioned his love of young girls. He also wished Ghislaine Maxwell well. And it seems like the rift between them actually stemmed from a dispute over property, because, of course. So it seems like, at the very least, we know Trump was cool with Epstein being a weirdo creep about young women, until it potentially threatened his club's reputation. Unsurprising behavior from a guy found liable for rape, which is, what Trump is. Last year, Trump was found liable in a civil case for sexually abusing and defaming E. Jean Carroll. The judge presiding over the case clarified that sexual abuse, in this instance, meant rape. Again, seems like this should be enough for him to not be nominated a second time. But as a, let's call it bonus, he's also profoundly gross when it comes to his own daughter, Ivanka. Miles Taylor, former chief of staff at the Department of Homeland Security under Donald Trump, wrote in his book Blowback, aides said he talked about Ivanka Trump's breasts, her backside, and what it might be like to have sex with her. Remarks that prompted Chief of Staff John Kelly to remind the president that Ivanka was his daughter. This account is made more credible by Trump's public statements about his daughter, like that time on The View in 2006, when he said he'd date his daughter if she wasn't, that's right, his daughter.
Said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
Stop it! Oh, it's so weird. Stop it.
So weird. Stop it. Oh, you rapist. Look, I know that parenting can be challenging and it's impossible to be a perfect dad, but one of the most basic rules of parenting is to not go on national television and talk about wanting to blast your own daughter. And yet, he said it again in 2015. Referencing Ivanka, he told Rolling Stone magazine, "Yeah, she's really something, and what a beauty, that one. If I weren't happily married and, her father." Ha ha ha! Stop it, you. Wow, so funny. He wants to do incest. Hilarious. Or, I don't know, maybe it's not so much that he wants to do incest, but that he can't really think of women as anything other than sexual objects. So in his sticky little mind, the highest praise he could offer his daughter is that he finds her fuckable. Oh, also, he raped his ex-wife, Ivana. She described the horrific event in a book, as well as in a legal deposition during her divorce. Some people like pointing out that she later retracted this, but actually what she retracted was the use of the word rape. The event, which describes a violent rape involving pulling her hair from her scalp because she recommended a bad doctor for his hair plugs, is a description of rape. Even if, I guess you don't want to use that word. So cool. Question. This guy? as the president? The rapist who openly wants to bang his daughter? Setting aside all the other stuff, which we really shouldn't do. But, okay, setting it aside, I'm not sure why this isn't enough. You combine this with him enabling the removal of Roe v. Wade, directly affecting victims of rape. I don't know, man. It seems like he hates women and is using his authority to directly attack them. This is the guy that some of you want to represent our country and our values? I mean, don't some of you have daughters? I want to keep going on this, but alas, we have more stuff to talk about after the ads. So I'm going to go check on Seaward Johnny and see if he's still being a big sick baby. And you just sit there and relax and watch these extremely entertaining ads. And then we're going to meet back here, okay? Okay.
Hey everybody, this is the part that is where the ads go, but there's no ad for you because you're our beautiful patron on patreon.com/somemorenews. We couldn't do the show without you. Thank you so much. This is episode 250. That is so wild. Thank you so much for your support. If it's your first month, if it's your ninth month, whatever it is, thank you so much for your support over the years, or again, the weeks or the months, whatever. We're gonna go back to the show because I want to go home and sleep. But thank you so much. Back to the show.
Welcome back. I'm Katy. Cody still has the COVID on account of his weak blood. Not like my blood. This morning, I licked the entire floor of a hospital hallway, end to end, and I feel fine. I mean, my throat's on fire, but that's probably because of the cigars. Cigars do that, the same way they cause chills and fever. Anyway, back to the video. We've jabbered a lot about how Trump is a rapist and fascist and other ists. He's done and said things that he should perhaps be held legally accountable for. And a lot of this stuff should have disqualified him from holding office for those legal or political reasons. But also, he's just a dick, which I'd argue should also disqualify him, if only because no one should want to elect a weird bulbous penis, at least not as president. Orange Man cruel. Not sure how else to slice it, he is a dick, a piece of shit, a weird bully who likes to mock anyone remotely different from him. He has repeatedly made fun of people's weight, for example. His entire thing is having some kind of nickname for someone that's designed to humiliate them in some way, often in a overtly ableist or racist way that would have disqualified anyone else. Crazy Bernie, Coco Chow, Ditzy DeVos, Strange Jack Smith, Crazy Kamala, Crazy Nancy. I mean, no one said the guy was creative. Even if you're not offended by this stuff, okay, well, a lot of these nicknames do end up being pretty fun. It's still just weird and trashy in a way we never used to accept from a politician. Similarly, it's very weird we accept a guy who regularly attacks women with an absolute fire hose of sexist statements and remarks. It's hard to even remember it all. He's routinely called women ugly, especially when he's accused of raping them. Remember that? Remember how every time he's accused of rape, his defense isn't that he wouldn't rape someone, but not rape that person specifically because he thinks they're unattractive. Unlike his daughter, you see. Hey, remember the blood coming out of her whatever line about Megyn Kelly? Remember how when he first ran, his tactic during the primary was to call his opponent's wife ugly and encourage people to harass her online? Trump loves to mock people, specifically when they are at their lowest moments. He mocked Jimmy Carter while his wife was dying. After Democrat John Dingell died in 2019, Trump told a crowd that he was looking up from hell. He would later call his widow a loser. He regularly calls his own military soldiers suckers and losers. He promised to pay for a soldier's funeral, and when he found out how much it cost, he allegedly said, quote, It doesn't cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. He absolutely loves making fun of Paul Pelosi for being assaulted with a hammer. Guys, remember when he mocked the mother of a dead U.S. soldier because she was Muslim? Remember all the shit he has said about dead military members in this country? Remember when he said that John McCain wasn't a hero because he got captured and, by extension, mocked every prisoner of war?
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
Oh, right. Remember all that Arlington Cemetery stuff that just happened this year? What else? There's, of course, his supporters and the long history of Trump encouraging their hatred and violence, at one point offering to pay their legal fees if they commit assault. ABC News found 54 cases of mostly white men committing violence in his name. And that was back in 2020, before, the coup attempt. Hate crimes went up while Trump was president. Of course they did. Hey, okay, speaking of his rallies, remember that time Trump mocked a disabled man?
Written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
Even without context, I don't think a president should be allowed to make the noises he just made. But in context, that was Trump making fun of a New York Times reporter for having a congenital joint condition. Some people like to claim that he wasn't being ableist. That's just an erratic movement he does when he makes fun of anyone. So, okay, I guess the argument is that he will bully anyone in an ableist manner if they criticize him, even you. Also, after the incident, he asked for an apology because he sucks, you see. In private, Trump is somehow even worse when it comes to disabled people. Dare I say, Hitler-esque? Trump's own nephew, Fred Trump, has a son with a genetic disorder and in turn became an advocate for people with disabilities. Naturally, he thought he could bring these issues to his Uncle Don, what with him, being the president at the time. This was in 2020, during the pandemic, mind you, when Fred got a meeting in the Oval Office, during which Trump took his nephew aside and said, according to Fred, those people, the shape they're in, all the expenses, maybe those kinds of people should just die. And if you think he's not explicitly telling this man that his own son should die, he said it again since then. Later that year, Trump allegedly told Fred specifically about his son, I don't know, he doesn't recognize you. Maybe you should just let him die and move down to Florida. So, eugenics. Explicitly so because Donald allegedly also said that Fred's son couldn't have a genetic disorder since, quote, there's nothing wrong with our genes. Now, that is technically not an exact quote from Trump, but this is.
Now a murderer, I believe this, it's in their genes. And we got a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
Dude loves talking about good and bad genes. Like a Nazi would. Oh, by the way, not that it matters, but according to Fred, his son absolutely recognized him. Trump just made that up about his grandnephew. But anyway, Trump, as president, and during a pandemic that would cause an uptick in disabilities, thought that we should let disabled people die. And just to be clear, he's not talking about really old people on life support or Cody or any gray area like that. So when he says those kinds of people should just die, what exactly is he implying we do to them? Hey, remember when thousands of Americans died and Trump said, it is what it is, when asked about all those deaths? Because, of course, Trump's policies were also cruel. On the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, Trump rolled back medical protections for LGBTQ Americans. He also pushed to make it okay to fire someone for being trans. Because while Trump once seemed fine with trans people, it's very politically helpful to attack them.
It's amazing how strongly people feel about that. You see, I'm talking about cutting taxes. People go like that. Talk about transgender. Everyone goes crazy. Who would have thought 5 years ago you didn't know what the hell it was?
He's just openly admitting that he is willing to attack trans people for political gain, the same way he's willing to attack immigrants or really anyone if it benefits him. I feel like we didn't talk enough about his immigration policies, and it almost feels like the word cruelty isn't good enough to address a lot of what his administration has done. So let's give this its own fun section. Orange Man made everything bad for everyone. Think of this like a bonus round. I'm gonna try and rattle off as much as I can, even though my throat is starting to really hurt, getting a little achy. And it was genuinely hard to find every example. Starting with civil rights. Trump's administration pushed war on drug era laws, harsher punishments, including mandatory minimum sentencing. His Department of Education scaled back their civil rights investigations. That department also set a higher burden of proof for campus sexual assaults, lest these poor sexual assaulters get schlonged. Speaking of women, Trump got rid of the 2014 Fair Pay and Safe Workplaces executive order, which was designed to prevent government contracted companies from discriminating against women employees. He also trashed a rule that required businesses to disclose how much they were paying women and minorities. Speaking of workers' rights, Trump made it A-OK for some employers to deny contraceptive coverage for their workers. He also refused to pay government employees during the 2019 shutdown, resulting in lawsuits. Trump was, of course, devastating to unions. In 2018, he signed an executive order limiting how much time union reps can help federal workers file grievances, as well as weakening their ability to bargain. He also made it a rule that you have to tell your supervisor if you want to talk to the unions, and even evicted federal unions from their offices because he hates unions and openly wants to fire workers who strike. He is not a friend of workers, J.D. Vance. In 2019, his administration spoke out against raising the minimum wage, and a week ago, he cosplayed as a McDonald's employee, was asked about raising the minimum wage, and instead of answering it or saying these people deserve more money and respect, he just pivoted to an unsubstantiated claim about Kamala Harris never working at McDonald's. During his presidency, he did, however, encourage and reward companies for taking their jobs overseas. But hey, he doesn't want to tax overtime pay, I guess, which is ironic since during his administration, he replaced an Obama-era rule and as a result, excluded millions of people from qualifying for overtime. He, of course, also repeatedly tried to get rid of Obamacare, despite his lying idiot VP Pick's bizarre statement claiming the exact opposite. Because Trump seemingly hates everything that helps non-rich people and wants to actively hurt everyone instead. Oh, right. I was supposed to talk about his immigration policies. My bad. We've already talked about how he wants to do a Hitler or two, but there is stuff he's already done. Horrifying things under his administration, like purposely separating parents from their children, drugging those children, and then making those parents choose between seeking asylum or seeing their kids again, or just deporting those parents without their kids. During his presidency, Trump asked the DOD for extra space to hold 5,000 stolen kids. We had so many kidnapped children, we didn't know where to put them. There were also the littler fuck yous, like deporting anyone who couldn't immediately pay for health insurance and sending back victims of domestic abuse to go live with their abuser, lest they get schlonged. Oh, and while all this was going on, the government was tracking and also harassing anyone who reported on it or protested it. Again, Hitler stuff. Sometimes literally, sometimes just a waft. Second worst. Wasn't a fan of Mantown. It just smelled like cum. Speaking of assaulting the air we breathe, I feel like we should mention how bad Trump was for the environment. Dude rolled back a total of 112 rules designed to protect our planet. Some brief examples being a bill undoing a rule that protected waterways from mining waste, deregulating factories that emit air pollution, fucking not wanting mercury limits at coal plants, and of course, more drilling, something he's promising this time around as well. Even though Joe Biden, who promised to stop drilling so much, has actually led us to all-time highs in oil production. His administration pushed climate change denial on a government level, getting rid of the literal words on U.S. websites. Trump seems to have a personal vendetta against saving the environment. And that's not hyperbole. Ever since he tried and failed to get rid of a wind farm near one of his golf courses, he has waged war on renewable energy, constantly lying and spreading propaganda to his supporters. He has turned climate change into even more of a culture war than it already was, pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accord, put tariffs on solar equipment, and is currently promising to get rid of offshore wind projects. Presumably because he is personally mad at wind turbines, or, as he calls them, windmills. Truly, a modern-day Don Quixote. Sancho Panza? Got him. That was a Cody line. I don't condone that line. It's so wild that Trump is trying to tell us that he'd be better for natural disasters. His actual environmental policy is simply that he was a rich business guy who wants to help himself and other rich business guys. And if elected, we will see him continue to deny climate science while we get pummeled by storms that his supporters will, I guess, blame on the Jews. Oh my God. Oh my God. Remember when Puerto Rico was hit by a hurricane and nearly 3,000 people died? Most of those specifically because of the poor government response resulting in a lack of access to medical care. And then Trump blamed Puerto Rico for it and threw paper towels at people? My goodness. The election is going to be over by the time we're done listing this stuff. I've honestly already worked up a sweat, like a cold, shaky sweat, and my skin is getting kind of yellow now. I don't know, guys. Maybe hanging out in that hospital was a bad idea. Is malaria contagious? Is malaria contagious? Cody! Cody!
What? Death? Is that you?
Yes, it is me. Is malaria contagious?
Listen, I got a nap. I can't do this.
Well, that's a shame because I super have to go.
I have COVID, Katy.
Well, I probably have malaria. Or maybe it's E. coli. I did eat like 6 quarter-pounders this morning. Anyway, I win this round. Again. Okay. I'm gonna go. Race you to hell!
But we're already there, Katy. We're already there. Orange Man Crimes. Oh good, more episode. So much more episode. Hey, I'm back. I didn't nap at all. I just sort of tensed up for a while, grinding my teeth. I feel everything. Anyway, Orange Man Crimes indeed. Much like his racism, Trump being a scum guy who was bad at doing crimes was one of the first things we knew about him. In fact, in a combination of the two, as a real estate owner in the 70s, he discriminated against black people by instructing his superintendent to label tenant applicants as C for colored, and also kept black people away from casino tables at the behest of mobster Robert Labuti. That is a 1-2 punch of obvious crimes and obvious racism. Trump famously doesn't pay his workers and owes a bunch of contractors money, including not paying a chandelier company for the chandeliers Trump bought for Mar-a-Lago, probably for one of his bathrooms. That trend of skipping out on the bill has continued even into his presidency, as he currently owes $750,000 for all of his campaign events. Which is weird. You'd think he could use all the campaign donations to pay for, the campaign, but instead he's using that money to pay for his legal fees, something you can apparently do, which is, of course, not new for Trump. He has used his charitable foundations to dodge taxes and uses funds from these charities to pay fines he accrues or to pay people for lawsuits, such as a guy in 2010 who sued Trump for not paying out a promised $1 million for a hole-in-one during one of Trump's charity tournaments. Trump would go on to only pay around $150,000 and used funds from the charity to do it. Because again, it's not that Trump does crimes, but he does really low-level petty scumbag crimes. Gosh, do you remember Trump University? Do you?
At Trump University, we teach success. That's what it's all about. Success. It's going to happen to you.
Donald Trump is without question the world's most famous businessman. As a real estate developer, he has reshaped the New York skyline with some of that great city's most prestigious and elegant buildings. Now, Donald Trump brings his years of experience to the world of business education with the launch of Trump University.
What is that, an AI voice? What a cheap ad. Do you remember that? When Trump pretended to run an accredited business school, despite it being not that? And he was forced to pay a settlement because of how scammy it was, and all the high-pressure sales tactics such as encouraging customers to max out their credit cards. Thank you so much, Donald, for ushering in a new age of fake bullshit universities. God, all the scams. Remember Trump steaks? Remember when Trump, during his 2016 primary run, held a campaign event with what he claimed were his Trump steaks, and then it was revealed that Trump steaks had gone out of business years ago, and the steaks in question were actually Bush Brothers steaks, as evidenced by the Bush Brothers logo still on the packaging. What a weird lie to make. But of course, Trump is a compulsive liar. I probably should stress that more. Trump lied at least 30,573 times while he was the president. And even if you hear that and go, well, the media lies about him all the time, so I bet it's less than that. It's still probably pretty high. A small fraction of 30,573 is still a lot of damn lies. He's, of course, still doing scams, in case you were worried he stopped. I was so worried, but no, he's still doing scams. Trump is selling both sneakers and a special Trump Bible made in China to pay for his legal fees. Not to mention Trump trading cards.
It's called the America First Collection. 50 all-new stunning digital trading cards. It's really something.
Sorry, digital trading cards. Because he's cheap, you see. Not sure if you recall, but back when he was first running for president, this was exactly what people were worried about. That he would simply use the presidency to do weird scams on vulnerable people. Oh, balls! Guys, folks, pals, do you remember the tax return stuff? Do you remember how when he first considered running for president, Trump was all like, oh yeah, I'll totally release those.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely.
And then he ran, and everyone was like, so where are they? And he was all like, well, I'll release them in a few months after this routine audit. And then he just never did that. Probably because he didn't want us to know that he's not a successful rich guy. And Trump went from saying he'd totally release his tax returns all the way to fighting the release of them in court, saying that they were doing political prosecution to him for making him do a thing that all presidents before him did since the 70s. Remember how obvious it was to anyone who wasn't a baby that Trump just clearly was a bad con artist from the start? Do you remember the blank folders? Oh my, oh heavens! When Trump, as the president-elect, held a press conference where he presented a bunch of documents to prove that he was going to divest from his businesses. And those documents were clearly blank because, of course, Trump used the presidency to get personally rich. Despite claims that Trump lost so much money and sacrificed so much of his wealth just to be your measly most powerful person on the planet. No, his businesses made billions while he was in charge. If you're one of those people who thinks he sacrificed his wealth to be president, you are a peasant. You are exhibiting peasant mentality. I'm so sorry. Because also, at least part of that was literally from us. our money because Trump charged millions of dollars to the Secret Service for staying at his property, which they had to be at because he was at them. A lot. Remember that? Remember how Trump spent a lot of time at his own properties golfing and not the White House? Perhaps because he knew he got paid if he did that? Trump had at least 3,400 conflicts of interest while in office. During his presidency, Trump somehow made $550 million after handing off control of his businesses to his very, very unbiased children, who also got rich working at the White House with their dad. But I'm sure they were very qualified to bring peace to the Middle East. God. Remember Jared Kushner? Remember Roger Stone? Remember the parade of criminals that Trump kept at his side and continues to hire? All the weird Nazi scumbags like Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, and how Trump burned through most of his staff like they were cadavers at a flamethrower factory. All the people he either threw under the bus or who simply didn't stick around long enough to be thrown under the bus. Remember Scaramucci or Dancing with the Stars Sean Spicer? All the people that Trump ruined the lives of simply by associating with him. Like, Trump was the entire gang from Always Sunny wrapped into one dude. They wanted to hang his vice president. Remember Michael Cohen? Remember the hush money to the porn actress? Remember all the stolen documents in his house? Remember James Comey and how Trump asked him to stop investigating his lawyer and then fired him after he spoke up about his concerns around Trump and Russia? Remember the impeachment? Not that one. No. The first one, when he and the people under him tried to extort Ukraine for dirt on Joe Biden's son? Also, remember the other impeachment for the coup, which is also a crime, I do believe. So it counts here, actually. Remember air? That thing we breathe, but I'm not breathing right now. Fear, ponies, fear. One moment, sorry. Okay, back to it. Are we done with the crime segment? No, there are still crimes. Oh my gosh. Okay, what else? There was that time where he defrauded investors by intentionally misreporting the values of his properties to lie about his net worth, avoid taxes, and get better loans. A New York judge ordered Trump to pay $355 million worth of fraudulent earnings for that. We already mentioned all the rapes, but those are crimes, so I'm going to mention them here too. He has a thorough record of lying to investors about how much real estate he's sold, causing the investors to lose money, while Trump and his family were able to keep money that they collected up front. There was that DOJ investigation into whether Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi gave Donald Trump a quid pro quo payment of $10 million. In 2019, Trump-appointed Attorney General Bill Barr decided not to pursue the investigation against Trump. It's weird, I know. He cited a lack of evidence, while simultaneously top DOJ officials were denying evidence to investigators in the probe by blocking their access to bank records. Cool stuff, sounds innocent. The somewhat warm and smoky gun was that in 2017, 5 days before Trump assumed office, a bank manager in Cairo received a letter from an organization with ties to Egyptian intelligence with orders to withdraw $10 million. After that, 4 men came and took the money in cash. This matched up with suspicions from 2 years earlier that Sisi was looking for ways to give Trump $10 million for his election. And it just so happened that Trump gave exactly $10 million of his own money to his campaign, something that investigators apparently found highly suspicious. Boy, you couldn't do like 11 million or 9 million. You had to give the exact amount of money you were being bribed with, because again, he's not just doing crimes, but he's bad at doing crimes. He's stupid. Which, dare I say, isn't a good quality for a president to have. Like, Trump supporters will often write off his crimes and his cheating as being this smart thing he does, as if having a scammy crime president will help us somehow. Like he's gonna scam China for a free pipeline or something. And ultimately, for a lot of what we've already talked about, the racism, crime, sexual assaults, supporters will hand wave that because they think he's good at being president. And I sort of understand the thinking there, in that some people don't need their president to be moral if they are doing good things for us. The problem, however, is that not only is Trump very stupid, but he was, even for his supporters, a very bad president. Orange Man Bad President. Now, hi, hey, so you probably count a lot of what I've already said as being a bad president. Good for you. But what I'm talking about here is when a Trump supporter brings up stuff like the economy or jobs or some Facebook AI slop meme they saw to claim that Trump was good at his job. So let's look at the economy. And just to start, when talking about the economy under Trump, people often say that's not fair because of COVID. I would argue, however, that this is exactly the fucking point. That there was a global pandemic under Trump that in turn ruined the economy. And while some of that isn't his fault, the United States did worse at controlling COVID than other wealthy countries because of Trump. Don't believe me? I literally have COVID right now. It's in my blood. It's eating me up. Ugh. So there's that. While other countries worked fast to contain the pandemic, the US did not. Trump was seemingly working with the virus, questioning the science, promoting disinformation, hosting super spreader events, killing Herman Cain. Not that his Twitter seemed to notice. He put fucking Kushner in charge of the pandemic, his son-in-law, who in turn completely fucked it up by using it as like a networking opportunity, hiring a bunch of outside consultants who knew nothing about the situation, and at times had to Google basic questions and use their own personal laptops and email accounts. Trump gave $100 million to an agency run by Kushner's friend with the goal of fixing supply chain issues during the pandemic, which they didn't do. It really can't be understated how bad Trump was at handling COVID, about basic logistics and governance, yes, and about the virus and health specifically, telling people not to wear masks, suggesting the injection of disinfectant, and pushing that malaria drug that, it turns out, made people more likely to die of COVID. He just says stuff. He says whatever, based on nothing, lying to you about things that could hurt you. He has no control over it. Seems like a bad quality for a president. He took a fucking global pandemic based around science and made it a political controversy. Trump's words and actions directly resulted in the deaths of countless Americans. So I guess, no, I don't discount COVID when talking about the economy. But also, it's weird we even have to talk about the economy when we just said all the words we just said just now. You know, about how Trump was such a bad president that he got a lot of us killed. But at least COVID is over now, he said, with COVID. But sure, back to the fucking economy. When you look at every metric, the economy under Trump basically just stayed the course from what was happening before Obama and into Biden, except for that pandemic part. But there was the added bonus of Trump's 2017 tax cuts for the richest Americans and biggest companies, which, if extended past 2025 and into the next 10 years, would cost $4 trillion. So if Trump wins, that's presumably what will happen. He says he's going to make that up with 20% tariffs on imports, something that economists have called fucking stupid. Not an exact quote, but according to a gaggle of Nobel Prize winning economists, this plan would actually make inflation way worse. Remember how that's something we've been worried about? Trump will make that worse. Opposite of better. But this is just one of the many fun ways Trump's presidency made America a worse place. Like, hey, have you noticed that a lot of food is getting recalled lately?
The Food and Drug Administration recalled more food last year than it had in 5 years. That includes all kinds of groceries like vegetables and ice cream. The FDA's food division is understaffed and underfunded. And that's a problem because foodborne diseases can have some very real consequences.
Thank you to that unnecessarily quirky Business Insider video. Thanks for doing the Garden State of News shows, I guess. There are multiple reasons for the uptick in recalls. One major one being that the FDA isn't taking enough action. And so yeah, under Trump, the FDA indeed decreased actions toward preventing tainted foods. He also increased the processing speeds of poultry, enabling easier contamination, as well as deregulating food labeling rules. Trump repeatedly tried to cut OSHA funding, and in fact, never even nominated a head for that agency. Of course he hates OSHA. It hadn't even occurred to me, but of course he does. Trump constantly dissolved health protections for American workers. He went after the post office. Remember that? With DeJoy, he's still in office by the way, and how Trump hated the post office, likely because of mail-in voting, because of course every decision was about his personal gain. Remember how a former aide said that Trump didn't want to give disaster relief to states that didn't vote for him? Oh my goodness. Remember how Trump went after healthcare? How he approved states' plans to raise premiums for poor people, often poor people in the states that voted for him. People who voted for Trump to hurt them. Hurt me harder, daddy, is what they all say. It's how they say it too, in that voice. Did you know that the rate of Americans without health insurance rose under Trump? Because it did. And he still wants to get rid of the ACA, even now, and replace it with... drumroll.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now.
It's important to stress how Trump is bad for the people who want to elect him. He's bad at even doing the bad things he wanted to do. Like, hey, remember the wall?
We're going to build a wall. It's going to be built.
Spoilers. Nah. I mean, technically he built some wall that was mostly just fixing the fencing that already existed. We talked about immigration, but holy fucking shit, do you remember all the other international stuff? Remember when he pulled out of the Iran nuclear deal and that backfired and Iran just continued their nuclear program? Ultimately, the only major thing he set out to do that he then accomplished was making it a nightmare to be a woman in this country.
There has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
I know he's flip-flopped on this constantly, but Trump was successful in the GOP's effort to poison the courts with conservative judges and gut women's rights to reproductive health. So I guess, if you hate women, congratulations on this victory. I can't believe I'm only spending a few sentences on abortion. There's just so much. This is hell. I'm in hell? And I think we've all died and are in hell. Remember QAnon? Remember the fact that a United States president openly encouraged a cult-like deep state conspiracy following for years and years and years? People who just ran around doing violence over this absolutely delusional movement. How fucking wild is that? That the president has his own cult thrall. It's hard to even wrap my head around that. His wife hates him. Did we mention that? Did we mention how his wife clearly hates him? Or all the extremely embarrassing stuff he did over the years? That Jonathan Swan interview when he bragged/lied about how his building was the tallest building after 9/11. Sorry, during 9/11. He said that during it. I know it's technically not as bad as a lot of the other stuff, but the dude was just so embarrassing. All the fucking photos of Trump giving a thumbs up in incredibly inappropriate places. The other McDonald's photo shoot, when he looked directly at an eclipse after people told him not to. They said, don't look at it, and he looked at it. When he got COVID and tried to walk it off. Oh my God, remember his weird hack doctor, the cognitive test stuff, which he's still doing, when he claimed he won Man of the Year, the fake Civil War memorial, thanking himself at Thanksgiving, burying his ex-wife on his golf course? Black jobs! Who knew healthcare was so complicated? The fake Boy Scouts phone call? Lawnmower Boy! When he said that exercise uses up your finite life force? Hiding the USS John McCain? The crowd size at his inauguration? Not realizing he was the president of the Virgin Islands? When he'd rip up every paper you gave him? Tim Apple, that taco bowl? Windmills cause cancer? Stable genius? George Washington at the airport? The truck photo, the Hurricane Sharpie incident, how he talked all the time about how his turds were too big, his obsession with schlonging, and Arnold Palmer's schlong, and probably the schlong of the late great Hannibal Lecter, getting in a fight and losing to a child. There's also that weird flag hugging thing he does, or when he shakes hands with people in that cartoonishly aggressive way, like he's Bluto trying to fuck with Popeye. Of course, sometimes Popeye doesn't take any of Bluto's crap. Boy, there's a lot to say about Trump's international presence and how generally the world lost respect for our country. Remember the orb, the tiny suit for meeting the queen, shoving around world leaders, sad pope, that fucking koi pond? What about all the weird Christmas decorations, which actually I kind of like? The haunting family photos? It's just... embarrassing is the best word for it, and he can't turn it off, regardless of the situation. He has to be a fucking alien about everything. After his attempted assassination, he did this memorial thing for the rally participant who was shot and killed. The man was a firefighter, so Trump had his uniform brought up on stage and kissed it. It's just kind of uncomfortable. A man died, and Trump is turning it into this weird performance. It's weird to say that he's not being, like, presidential, because presidents have done some monstrous things while hiding behind a veil of civility. I like the idea of a president acting human, but not alien. If you're, say, announcing a major event, it would be nice to see that you can do that.
Last night, the United States brought the world's #1 terrorist leader to justice. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is dead. He died like a dog. He died like a coward. The world is now a much safer place. Our canine, as I call it a dog, a beautiful dog, a talented dog, was injured and brought back. But we had no soldier injured. And they did a lot of shooting, and they did a lot of blasting, even not going through the front door. You know, you think you go through the door. If you're a normal person, you say, knock, knock, may I come in?
Come on, man. You sound like me if I was up there. He's just a bad president, on top of being a bad person. I'm sick of looking at him. I'm sick of thinking about him. And yeah, I'm sick, but I'm just sick of all of it. Aren't you? He has taken so much from this country, all for himself. Like, has anyone put a monetary cost on Trump? The $7.8 trillion in debt we got under his presidency in service of what? Rich people? Over $100 million so he could golf? All the millions he billed the US government? The cost of the damage he caused with COVID and his lies around the election? He's plundered this country and made it objectively noticeably worse. Threw everyone under the bus for his own gain. He should be in jail. But at least he doesn't have to be the president. He shouldn't get to be president. Is that too much to ask? Is it too much to ask that this weird, greasy, rapist, criminal, incompetent fascist doesn't become the president again?
But Cody!
Oh God, I forgot you were watching.
Wouldn't you rather have a racist and incompetent and mean and fascist president than an evil and old and feeble Mr. Joe Biden? You hate Joe Biden and made Warmbo hate Joe Biden, and now you're supporting Joe Biden?
What? No, I wouldn't wait. Do you think Joe Biden is still running? Have you not watched news?
Warmbo isn't a slave to mainstream media.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so I guess we have a lot more work to do with Warmbo, but to wrap up this video, I really think the final and most pressing case against Trump is that he's just fucking exhausting. Not just because I have COVID. He's exhausting to think about, exhausting to analyze, to explain his many, many lies upon other lies, lies about doing lies. He and his followers have taken every single aspect of American life and made it a political battle, despite their complaints that the libs make everything political. It's an incredible feat considering how bad political discourse was already before he came along. Movies, video games, TV, vaccines, random products, tech, everything is exhausting and political and partisan. Remember how even once he became president, he never stopped campaigning? Because for him, being president was all about the rallies and the campaigning all the time, whipping people up into a frenzy about everything. He would take every issue and turn it into some kind of highly polarized political point, even before being president. Even holidays. Every holiday tweet he makes is framed around his personal grievances. Thanksgiving 2012, our country is in big trouble. Thanksgiving 2013, happy Thanksgiving to all, even the haters and losers. Admittedly, it's kind of funny. Thanksgiving 2014, the Carter family Thanksgiving will be a bit happier as Obama officially becomes the worst president in history. Just say happy Thanksgiving and move on. No holiday is safe from Trump's wrath, not even Christmas. Christmas 2023 on Truth Social, Trump posted a long, rambling screed. Merry Christmas to all, including crooked Joe Biden's only hope, deranged Jack Smith, the out-of-control lunatic who just hired outside attorneys, fresh from the swamp, unprecedented, to help him with his poorly executed witch hunt against quote-unquote Trump and quote-unquote MAGA. Included also are world leaders, both good and bad, but none of which are as evil and quote-unquote sick as the thugs we have inside our country who, with their open borders, inflation, Afghanistan surrender, Green New scam, high taxes, no energy independence, woke military, Russia-Ukraine, Israel-Iran, all-electric car lunacy, and so much more, are looking to destroy our once great USA. May they rot in hell. Again, Merry Christmas. That is a former United States president ending his official Christmas message with "May they rot in hell," like the drunkest and most racist uncle. And he's referring to, again, like half the country. The enemy within. How in the fucking world would anyone ever want to deal with this guy any longer? Not just as a president, but as a public figure. Absolutely 100% fucking exhausting. It's really hard to stress how shocking and abnormal it is for a major political party to embrace him. And if we were to successfully remove Trump from politics, we'd still have to contend with the fact that so many politicians try to put him in power. That's probably the most exhausting thing about him. The fact that he's exposed so many other people as being equally fucked up. Like the ending to They Live. Some, of course, are pretending to go along with the grift and scams, but Trump has also exposed this huge demographic of people who are so disillusioned and filled with grievances that they're fully willing to just direct the entire train off a cliff. And with this election, he has laid all the cards on the table. He's gone full racist, full fascist, and he is openly betting that there are enough people who either won't care or like that about him. And now, with so many masks off, it's hard to imagine how to come back from that. But we need to try. And for anyone still watching who feels like they're in too deep and don't know how to, all you have to do is change your mind. You can do that. You can say, "Oops, I was wrong about that guy. What a con man. Sorry." It's not too late, at least right now. That's why I want you to vote for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm just kidding. Oh my God. Can you imagine? That dude? What a guy. So, okay. Did any of this get through to you, Warmbo? Oh, shoot. This is our 250th episode of this show. That is wild to say. I just want to say thank you, everybody who supported us over the years. We couldn't have done this without you. Hopefully, well, maybe not 250 more. We'll see how many more we do. But thank you so much to everybody watching for your support and for our amazing team that has worked so hard for so many years to make this show happen every week when we do it every week. And especially this week, everybody stepped up so much. I really do have COVID, by the way. It sucks. I hate it so much. So thank you so much, everybody, for your support and hard work. And we usually do like a little joke at the end. So
Live stream.
Oh, we're doing a live stream on election night. So check that out on our channel. We'll send out links if you follow us on the socials. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. Just kidding. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. That'd be great. We've got a podcast called Even More News you can check out on this channel. And at the podcast place, we've got this show. It's called Some More News. You can watch that, which you just did on the channel, or listen to it on the podcast place. We've got merch. Check it out. Look at all the merch stuff. Oh my gosh, Warmbo's there. Other stuff too. That's the link to that place. And as I said earlier, we are going to do a live stream on this channel on election night. We're going to have people. We're going to have other people. Warmbo will be here. We're going to look at the results. We're going to sing songs. We're going to express our joy or terror in many, many ways. So stop by if you have nothing else to do. And if you do have other stuff to do, step away and stop by anyway. Say hi. See you then, or not. I don't know. I'm tired. So I'm gonna, in the interest of transitioning to our next episode, I'm going to sleep. Spoilers, that's what it's about. Goodbye. Goodbye. Love you so much. Oh my God.